We now come to business questions. I call the Shadow Leader of the House, Jessie Norman.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Speaker. Will the Leader of the House give us the forthcoming business?
Leader.
I shall. The business for the week commencing the 9th of December includes Monday the 9th of December, remaining stages of the Terrorism Protection of Premises Bill, Tuesday the 10th of December, Committee of the Whole House of the Finance Bill, Day 1, Wednesday the 11th of December, Committee of the Whole House of the Finance Bill, Day 2, Thursday the 12th of December, general debate on Lord Etherton's independent review into the treatment of LGBT veterans, followed by debate on a motion on the performance of medicines and healthcare products regulatory agency. The subject for this debate was determined by the Backbench Business Committee. Friday the 13th of December, the House will not be sitting. The provisional business for the week commencing the 16th of December will include Monday the 16th of December, second reading of the Water Special Measures Bill, Lords. Tuesday the 17th of December, Committee of the Whole House and remaining stages of the National Insurance Contributions Secondary Class 1 Contributions Bill. Wednesday the 18th of December, Committee of the Whole House and remaining stages of the Lords Spiritual Women Act 2015 Extension Bill, Lords, followed by Committee of the Whole House and remaining stages of the Financial Assistance to Ukraine Bill, followed by remaining stages of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association and International Committee of the Red Cross Status Bill, Lords. Thursday, the 19th of December, general debate on matters to be raised before the forthcoming adjournment. The subject for this debate was determined by the Backbench Business Committee. The House will rise for the Christmas recess at the conclusion of business on Thursday, the 19th of December, and return on Monday, the 6th of January.
Jessie Norman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It is great to see that Christmas it has come to the Palace of Westminster. I hope you enjoyed the Christmas fair yesterday and loaded up on Frank's luxury biscuits from Herefordshire just as heavily as I did. And just in time for Small Business Saturday as well. Mr. Speaker, I understand the Prime Minister will be delivering a speech later today setting out his plan for change. I must say I'm delighted to hear this, I'm sure we all are, that the government is at last adopting a plan and that it is trying to change. Because, as we have so often noted at Business Questions, the government's first 5 months have been a festival. No, a carnival, a supermarket sweep, fill your boots, all-you-can-eat blunderfest of delay and incompetence. Mr. Speaker, you more than any member of this House will be aware that the effective functioning of Parliament rests on its ability to hold ministers to account. That has been true since its origins in the 13th century and arguably even before that. And as you will know, this practice of seeking reasons and explanations for official actions, whether they be the passage of bills or the raising of taxation, is not some useful add-on or afterthought. It is absolutely foundational to the whole idea of Parliament as a deliberative assembly. So I'm sure you will understand my disappointment that the Leader of the House has been so persistently unwilling to answer or even to address the very simple questions which I have been putting to her in recent weeks. On November the 14th, I drew attention to the government's incompetence in combining 3 measures at the same time on national insurance and the minimum wage in a way that drastically raises the cost of hiring entry-level staff, and I asked for an assessment of the total impact of these measures. I'm afraid the Leader's response was to blame the previous government and talk about employers who will pay no additional national insurance, a completely different group and quite irrelevant to the question asked. November 21st, I again highlighted this problem and got the same response, to blame the last government and change the subject. But I also extended my concern about government incompetence to include its decision to bring forward the clean energy commitment from 2035 to 2030 and highlighted a vast array of public and official worries about whether this was either achievable or financially viable. In response, I'm sorry to say, again, the Leader did not engage with either of these questions. Instead, she accused me of political opportunism. And last week, we saw the same thing once more. For the third time, I raised the question of Labour's triple whammy in combining changes to national insurance rates and thresholds with changes to the minimum wage. This time, the Leader did not simply duck the question and change the subject. She also gave me the benefit of a little homily on the duties of the opposition. And it is true that the duties of the opposition are a topic on which, unlike the duties of government, she has built up considerable expertise over more than a decade. But the real point is this, Mr. Speaker. For a month now, I have been asking some basic questions and put them to the Leader of the House about the incompetence of this government. Many different responses were open to her. She could have said, well, I agree with you. Or she could have said, I don't know, I will look into it, I will reply to you, I will ask a ministerial colleague to investigate and respond, I will come back to the House with a proper account. But on no occasion has she bothered to give any kind of proper answer at all. Instead, and I fear the same will be true this week, the Leader's approach has been to change the subject, attack the previous government rather than defend the record of her own government, which is the whole point of these exchanges. Let us see what she says when she stands up shortly. If the government had made a decent start, of course, she might want to talk about that. But the truth is the government has made a dreadful start. It's been beset by petty scandals from the beginning. It's destroyed business confidence through a budget that's visibly unravelling before our eyes. And only this week it's lost a cabinet minister to new revelations about a criminal conviction for fraud. Little wonder the Prime Minister wants a reset. So let me say this, Mr. Speaker. The Leader's unwillingness to engage, to recognise and to respond to questions is arguably more important than any aspect of policy, because it strikes at the heart of the very idea of our parliamentary democracy. It is a discourtesy. In fact, I would suggest possibly even an insult to you, Mr. Speaker, to all our colleagues and their constituents and to this House. It's made worse because the Leader is responsible for parliamentary business and procedure and should, one might think, set an example of openness. And it's worse still for two further reasons, because she herself has so often called for transparency from ministers, and because a failure to be accountable is itself a breach of the rules of this House, of the Nolan Principles and of the Ministerial Code of Conduct. That's quite a combination. So let me say this. Let me ask the Right Honourable Lady now whether she plans to continue as she has been doing, or whether she will change this unfortunate habit and start to engage with the serious questions I have been asking.
Leader of the House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I first of all put on record that Tuesday was International Day of Persons with Disabilities, and note that the House of Commons now has more disabled members than ever before, and I commend their contribution and look forward to working with them through the Modernisation Committee and with yourself, Mr. Speaker, to make sure this place and our politics are as accessible as they can be. And as has been mentioned, this Saturday is Small Business Saturday, where we celebrate the heart of all of our high streets. And I do like to hear in these sessions, Mr. Speaker, of some of the great cafes and bars in particular of those of many of our constituents, especially when they're followed by an invitation for me to attend. And I just want to put on record as well, Mr. Speaker, my thanks to you for the way proceedings were handled on Friday, and to all of those who took part and were here for the debate on assisted dying, which was respectful, considered and thoughtful. And whatever view we each took, I think the moment of huge attention was on us, and our democracy and our Parliament showed itself at its best, I thought, Mr. Speaker. Members will see there are lots of important issues and business in the run-up to Christmas. Two-thirds of the bills that we announced in our King's Speech are now making their way through Parliament. The rail franchising bill has now received royal assent. Renters' rights has completed its committee stage. And our important budget measures will soon be passed, because we are fixing the foundations and getting on with the job. And I think, has already been noted today, members may wish to know that copies of the Plan for Change document will be available in the Vote Office shortly, ahead of the statement later today. I have to say, Mr. Speaker, it's another week and another misjudged and confused contribution from the shadow leader. You know, he really does need to work out what their strategy for opposition is here. You know, tell the country they've never had it so good when they were in, or learn from defeat and accept that they got things wrong. And I might gently advise that they should listen to the voters, because acting as if they did nothing wrong and accepting no responsibility won't do them any good at all. And if he doesn't want to take my advice, Mr. Speaker, perhaps he should listen to his own. Because he said they suffered from, and I quote, many disastrous recent failures in policy and leadership. I agree. He said we had inherited a struggling economy and anaemic growth. I agree with that too. I also agreed with him when he was a champion of net zero, and he was right when he was the Financial Secretary to the Treasury to care about economic stability. I agreed with him. Does he still agree with him? Because I'm not quite sure.
Probably not.
And he asked some questions about scrutiny of legislation and debate. But I will gently remind him we have had many debates on the finance bill, many debates on the budget. We've got the bill before us on the national insurance contribution coming back to us next week and before Christmas. And I have to remind him yet again, I'm afraid, that he was the Financial Secretary to the Treasury when the national insurance contributions were raised not just on business but on workers as well, when he said that they were a thoroughly conservative thing to do. And he was also a Treasury Minister when the minimum wage was raised. So he's had plenty of time to come to this House and explain why he thought that was OK then, but it's not OK now. And he does raise the economy here today. I can see he's raising that. He failed to mention one of the big economic forecasts out this week from the OECD, which shows that the UK is now forecast to be the fastest growing European economy in the G7 over the next 3 years. He didn't mention that when he was talking about it. And we've always been clear that growth only matters when ordinary people right round the country feel better off and see public services improve. And that's the difference between our economic plans and his. We've got a plan for change. They have yet to change. They have to learn their own lessons. And we've got some clear outcomes we're laying out today about how we're going to deliver. He might not like them because they failed on all of their measures, which is why they lost the election. And while he and the rest of his party shout from the sidelines, trying to rewrite history, we are delivering the real change the public voted for.
Yeah. Rachel Hopkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My honourable friend knows that on occasion this House can come to agreement about key pieces of legislation, and in the last Parliament one such was the Football Governance Bill. So I was wondering if she could give an update on its progress in this Parliament and consider granting government time for a debate on the sustainability of football.
Leader.
Well, can I thank you for that? I'm really pleased and proud that this government has brought back a strengthened football governance bill, which is currently being considered in the House of Lords. It used to be something that the party opposite supported when they were in government, but I have to say the behaviour of Conservative peers in the House of Lords does not suggest that they're still in favour of it, because they've tabled hundreds of amendments to slow down progress of that important bill. So if they still care about putting fans back at the heart of our football and making sure that we've got a sustainable football in the future, then perhaps they should tell their colleagues in the other place to pipe down.
Maria Goldman, the Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's difficult to deny, sadly, that there have been many times in recent years when debate in this House has not been of the highest quality, when members have not shown the public their best side, and when, dare I say it, perhaps some have lost a little sense of perspective in the way they have conducted themselves. But as the Leader of the House has already said today, the debate on the private members' bill that took place in this House last Friday was entirely different. It was measured, respectful and considered. Members listened carefully, intervened with important, pertinent points and showed British democracy at its best. In short, it was something to be extremely proud of, regardless of whether we agreed with the outcome or not. Party politics was largely kept out of that debate, as MPs were rightly given a free vote, a vote of conscience on a consequential topic. Free votes should surely be granted when we are debating issues that transcend party political boundaries, and surely there can be no issue more important than ensuring our planet is still able to support human life. The Climate and Nature Bill is a crucial cross-party bill brought by my honourable friend, the member for South Cotswolds, with support from 250 parliamentarians, including 88 Labour MPs, and with co-sponsors from 6 of the parties that sit in this House. Indeed, it was championed in the last Parliament by the members for Leeds Central and Headingley and Sheffield Hallam, even, I understand, by the member for Doncaster North. So will the Leader ask the Government to commit to a free vote at the second reading of the crucial Climate and Nature Bill on the 24th of January?
Well, can I thank her for that? And I wholeheartedly agree with her representation of this House on Friday and how we really did, I think, show ourselves at our very best. And I welcome working with her on the modernisation committee, because I think one of the things that we are looking at is how to ensure that backbenchers can come together more often in the interests of what our constituents want us to be talking about and in the public interest. And she asks about the bill early next year. I'm not quite sure what the status of that is, but I will reassure her that this government is absolutely committed to being a clean energy superpower by 2030. I know many in the party opposite, the other party opposite, now want to change those targets. We are committed to those targets and all the benefits that will bring, not just to tackling climate change, but to creating the jobs of the future and making sure that we've got lower bills and energy security for the long run. And in the spirit of cross-party, maybe I could just say at this juncture as well that I saw that the leader of the Liberal Democrats' Christmas song, which I'm sure everyone will want to download, is now it's riding high in the charts this week, and I just hope that it's not quite the same as his paddleboarding, which gets off to a great start and then falls flat on its face.
Can I just say to the House, hopefully, quick questions, short answers, and then we can get through, because this statement, which is very important to the House, I want to make sure we time it with the Prime Minister, so I'm aiming for about 1:10, And let's have a good example. Jayne Kirkham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last month it was announced that several MHCLG offices will be closing, including one in Truro, my constituency. The next nearest office is about an hour-and-a-half commute away, making relocation very difficult. And I wondered if the Leader of the House could facilitate a meeting between myself and the appropriate minister to discuss the future for Truro MHCLG workers.
Well, I'm really sorry to hear this, and I understand there will be no redundancies, but this is obviously a very difficult time for the staff, but I will absolutely ensure that she gets a meeting with the Minister to discuss it.
Bob Blackman, Chair of the Backbench Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In addition to the business announced by the Leader, next Thursday in Westminster Hall there will be debates on Disability Month and the opportunities for floating offshore wind power in the Celtic Sea. On Tuesday the 17th, with your permission, Mr. Speaker, there will be a debate on the impact of Old Oak Common on rail services to the West and Wales. There are opportunities for the two remaining debates in Westminster Hall on Thursday the 19th. And just a reminder to colleagues, we are on the committee closely monitoring those people that sign applications and say they're going to speak in debates and then fail to turn up. Now, Mr. Speaker, I met yesterday representatives of the Afghan community. This, once again, is one of those areas that has been neglected following the general election, with people in Afghanistan in fear of their lives because of the Taliban. Equally, the oppression of women in Afghanistan is absolutely outrageous and needs to be called out. Equally, there seems to be a change of policy at the Home Office in terms of issuing visas to people fleeing Afghanistan, and I wonder if we can have a statement on the floor of the House on what policy the government is following to help and assist these vulnerable people at a time of terrible trouble.
Well, can I first of all join him in advertising all the great debates that do happen in Westminster Hall, and I think it's something we should advertise and encourage colleagues to attend more often. He raises an important matter about those fleeing persecution, and especially women fleeing the situation that is beset in Afghanistan. And this government, as well as the previous government, has always taken a very positive view of these issues, but I will ensure he gets a full reply on that matter.
Waugh.
This week, Gordon Brown and the US Ambassador to the UK jointly launched a new £6 million investment by Comic Relief and by Amazon UK to the Multibank project. Multibank is a fantastic initiative that donates surplus stock from companies to families in real need. Everything from basics like baby clothes to bedding, and also other products, household products. Now, will she join me in congratulating John Shaw of Littleborough, who was made the Rochdale Man of the Year recently, entirely for his charitable work for places like Multibank.
Well, I absolutely join him in congratulating John Shaw, Rochdale's Man of the Year, maybe an award that the honourable gentleman might one day be lucky enough to receive as well, for all his work with Multibank and the great charitable work that they do.
Mr. Speaker, despite the valiant efforts of Superintendent Simon Hutchinson of Romford Police, who does a superb job looking after my constituency, we do not get the police cover in the London Borough of Havering that we pay for. The Mayor of London is not being fair to Romford. Will the Leader of the House ensure that we have a debate about police reform in the Greater London area so that places like Romford actually get police on the streets looking after my community?
Well, we will soon be having a debate about police reform when we bring forward the Crime and Policing Bill next year. And this government is bringing about 13,000 extra police officers on the beat. We're bringing in respect orders. We're taking tough action. More police, more powers, so that police in his constituency can get on with the job that they need to do.
Louise Jones.
Mr. Speaker, I've been supporting constituents in North East Derbyshire who are facing many issues with their new build home. The construction quality can be poor, communication with the developers unsatisfactory and key landscaping left unfinished. Will the Leader of the House grant a debate on the responsibility of developers?
Well, can I first of all congratulate the Honourable Lady on her recent engagement to another member of this House, the member for Loughborough. We have a new power couple emerging on the back benches, Mr. Speaker. But she raises some really serious points here, and that's why the government is looking at giving the New Homes Ombudsman the powers it needs to investigate and resolve complaints, and I will ensure that the House is informed of that when it progresses.
John Glen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Right Honourable Lady will be very aware in her own constituency the economic value that home has brought in terms of a venue for theatre and the arts. In Salisbury, we have a new executive director of Salisbury Playhouse. Would she ensure that her ministerial colleagues, when thinking about regeneration, actually bring together DCMS and local government ministers so that investment in our high streets can be centred around the therapeutic value of investment in the arts and culture, which has had such an impact in many other places and now must happen in Salisbury?
Well, I absolutely agree with him that culture and the cultural offer, and leisure indeed, is absolutely vital to regeneration and bringing together our town centres and communities like his in Salisbury. And I know that bringing together those departments is already happening and will continue to happen when we consider how we create great places like Salisbury.
Atkinson doesn't mention about maybe.
Some residents are getting parking fines if they don't pay for parking tickets within 5 minutes at the XL parking on Copeland Street in Derby. I'm pleased that the government is going to drive up standards in the private parking sector and is on the side of motorists. Could we have time for a local government minister to update the House on when the new code of practice for private parking will be published? I suggest a 5-minute rip-off charge as an example of what needs to go.
Well, she rightly highlights a pretty scandalous case of private parking charges in her constituency. As she rightly says, we will soon announce our plans for the new code of practice, and I will ensure that this House hears about that first.
Tessa.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Rachel was a village postmistress in my constituency, and her life was absolutely smashed to pieces by the Horizon scandal. Her claim was designed by a body of professionals who put together to work these things out. It was submitted. The Post Office had 40 days to respond. On the 38th day, the Post Office asked 2 questions. They were answered on day 39. But the timetable went straight back. The target was reset right back to 0. So she's now in 23 days into the second lot of 40 days, and she still has no offer. She says it's mentally battering. I say it's not fair. Can we have a debate on how we stop big corporations, and the Post Office in particular, playing games with little people whom they've ruined financially and reputationally and continue to bully?
Well, I'm really sorry to hear about Rachel's situation. She's absolutely right that sub-postmasters have waited too long for justice and they continue to wait too long for compensation. This government has set aside for the first time now a proper budget to deal with this, and we will act swiftly, and I will ensure the House is continually updated.
Lee Pitcher.
Thank you, Speaker, in Doncaster, Thorn and the Isle of Axholme, we are proud to be the home of a few branches of the Lions charity. Each year in the run-up to Christmas, I feed myself up and swap my usual suit and red tie for a very different festive outfit. The Lions sleigh and volunteers brings Father Christmas to the doorstep of thousands of smiling children. Will the Leader of the House join me in praising the hard work of the volunteers and their dedication, and wish the Thorn, Doncaster and Isle of Axholme Lions every success in smashing their fundraising goals this Christmas?
Well, I hope to see some fancy dress maybe going on as we approach Christmas, but I'm not sure the Speaker will allow that here. But I join him. I join him as ever, as he does every week in these sessions, in praising the work of volunteer groups like the Doncaster Lions in his constituency, and I hope he continues to do so.
Richard Tice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituents in Boston and Skegness and across the whole of Lincolnshire are very concerned about the uncertainty surrounding British Steel. Reports this week that it might be on the verge of collapse. Could the Leader of the House ensure a ministerial statement updating on the position with a guarantee that British Steel will not be allowed to close?
Well, this government's working flat out to protect British Steel because it's actually vital to our future economy and our security as well. We have made some statements to this House about progress, but I will ensure absolutely that this House is the first place to hear about any developments.
Law.
Community pharmacies are becoming an increasingly important part of our place-based healthcare provision, so I'm very pleased that our government is committing to more localised delivery. Nonetheless, numerous pharmacies in the St Austell and Newquay constituency have closed in recent years thanks to a shocking contract under the recent government. So what discussions has the Leader of the House had with Cabinet, with DHSC colleagues regarding pharmacies to ensure that they are properly remunerated for the services that they provide and the sustainability of the operating model is secure?
Well, community pharmacies play a really vital role in our communities and ensuring that healthcare is delivered and is based in our communities. I will ensure that the Health Department have heard his question today, and actually think it would make a really good backbench business debate or Westminster Hall debate, as I know there's a vacancy for them.
Sir Ben Chicken.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could the Leader of the House look at providing time for a debate about free trade and how best we should approach the incoming American administration in order to secure a free trade agreement? Can she just remind her right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, that we already have a free trade agreement with the European Union, but we don't with the United States, which is our single biggest national trading partner and would be greatly to our advantage, rather than aligning with the EU, which might see the United Kingdom subjected to American tariffs applied to the EU, which would be very much to our disadvantage.
Well, as the Prime Minister made clear the other evening in his Mansion House speech, we do not see this as an either-or. Both are crucial partners, and we will pursue the best free trade agreements we can get with both the United States and others, as we have one with the European Union already. But these things are a delicate balance, and under the previous government, I'm afraid that too many trade deals that they signed, signed away many of our farmers in this country, and maybe that's something they should consider.
Total Crichton.
Mr. Speaker, can I ask the Leader of the House to join me in congratulating all the winners of the Saltires, Scotland's National Book Awards, particularly Jayne Stout for her courageous and compassionate dispatches from the front line in Ukraine. And on a lighter note, congratulate all the Gaelic singers and musicians who triumphed at the Trads in Inverness on the weekend. Can she find government time for a debate on the Scottish arts so as to encourage Creative Scotland and the Scottish Government to carry on funding events like EDF, Heb Celt and these dynamic galleries in Loughborough and Teichharshvai in my constituency?
Well, can I join him in congratulating Jayne Stout and the other winners of the awards he mentions? And he raises a really important point, as others have mentioned, of the importance of culture to local communities. He will know this is a devolved matter, and the Scottish Government now, thanks to this government's budget, now has the funds and the powers it needs to continue supporting arts organisations like his.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, a hugely significant report from Amnesty finds that Israel has perpetrated 3 acts against Palestinians in Gaza which are prohibited under the Genocide Convention. Now, the government has repeatedly said that it's for judicial bodies to determine whether genocide is taking place, but this utterly fails to take account of the obligation to prevent duty in the Genocide Convention. If you have a duty to prevent, you can't wait until a court has made a determination before you take action to, and again I emphasise, prevent. Is this something, therefore, in light of the amnesty report that came out today, the government is prepared to make time for a debate about it, given that it goes to the heart of UK compliance with international law?
Yeah. Look, she raises an important issue, and I think the whole House can join in saying that we want an immediate ceasefire, because far too many civilians have died in this conflict, and it is time that this came to an urgent end. And what we need is a long-term path to a two-state solution, with a state of Palestine fully recognised alongside a safe and secure Israel. And that's what this government will continue to work towards. But I will ensure that there is time to consider some of the issues that she's raised.
Joe Morris.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm frequently contacted by constituents of mine in Haltwhistle who are outraged about the empty buildings that pockmark the town. So can the Leader of the House just commit to a debate in government time about how we can re-energise towns like Haltwhistle so that they can fuel the growth this country so desperately needs?
Well, he raises a really important matter, and breathing new life into our high streets is a priority of this government. We have a range of measures around business rates, around devolution of powers, around support for local communities, which are coming, and I will ensure that the House is always updated.
Sir Gavin Williamson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Dunoon Mugs, based in Stone, is celebrating 50 years producing some of the world's greatest ceramics. Can we have a debate to talk about not just celebrating the amazing work of our potters in Staffordshire, but also talking about the future and how we secure it for them?
Yeah. Well, he raises the future of ceramics, which is so important to his constituency and the surrounding region. It's one of our long-standing, really important industries. And I'm sure if he were to apply for a debate, as long as he adds his name and then turns up for it, that he might get one of the slots that are going at the moment.
Katrina Murray.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Today, the 5th of December, is International Volunteers Day. And in the interest of time, I could not list the number of voluntary organisations and volunteer groups and roles in my Cumbernauld Kirkham constituency, but their contribution is absolutely vital. Can I ask for debate in government time to celebrate the contribution that volunteers make to our local communities?
Yeah. Join her in congratulating the volunteers in her constituency of Cumbernauld and all of those across the House. As is always the case in these sessions, Madam Deputy Speaker, we get many people wanting to thank the work of their local volunteers and community groups. And as I often say, I really do think that would be a very well-attended backbench business debate.
Lisa Smart.
Much, Madam Deputy Speaker. My Hazel Grove constituent Kirsty is looking to adopt her child, but because she's self-employed, she's not entitled to either adoption leave or adoption pay. If she were having a biological child, she would be eligible for adoption allowance, maternity allowance, but at the moment she's getting no government support to do this. Could the Leader of the House set aside some government time to debate the support that government could give to adoptive parents?
Well, can I thank her for raising the issue of Kirsty in her constituency? She'll know that the Employment Rights Bill, which does explore some of these types of issues, is making its way through committee stage of this House. She might want to look at an amendment to that bill, or certainly raise these issues when that bill returns for its final stages.
David Williams.
Speaker, in 2021 in my constituency, a 6-year-old girl, Charlotte Skye Naglis, was killed after being hit by a speeding driver who was on drugs and was drunk. The driver spent 11 weeks in a coma, and whilst the police had taken a blood sample, they were unable to test it without his consent. Ever since, Charlotte's mother, Claire, has been campaigning tirelessly to amend Section 7A of the Road Traffic Act 1988 to allow blood samples to be tested without consent in cases where dangerous driving has led to a loss of life. Will the Leader of the House please make time to debate this important matter in the House?
Well, what a tragic case he raises, and many cases like this are raised consistently in the Chamber, Madam Deputy Speaker, and we are currently considering some possible changes to motoring offences to cover situations like this, and I will ensure that any such changes are brought to this House for an announcement first.
Damien Hines. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. We all know that the country needs more homes, but the government's proposed algorithm throws up anomalies like an increase for East Hampshire in the housing target of 86%, while targets for London actually go down. So can we have a debate in government time about how we make housing balanced and sustainable?
Well, can I thank you for that question? I mean, we have set a very ambitious housing target for this Parliament, which we are, we are being very ambitious about, and we're proud to say that we are. That's not to say that there would be a developer free-for-all. These will be locally developed and appropriate plans, but we do need to build the homes of the future, and that's what this government is trying to do.
Scott Arthur.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I was going to make a more political question, but I think I'll accept the invitation to talk about Small Business Saturday. And I would like to invite the Leader of the House to my constituency to meet some of the small businesses, and two in particular come to mind. The first is the Bald Baker, a business started up during lockdown by a single dad. His latest creation, Madam Deputy Speaker, is a pie which contains cheese, chips and doner kebab. Perhaps too early, but it does fit perfectly in your hand. If the Leader of the House, if that doesn't appeal to her, perhaps we could visit the nearby Platinum Barbers and she could be tempted by a haircut just like mine.
Well, I did invite invitations at the beginning, Madam Deputy Speaker, for Small Business Saturday, and I have to say the honourable gentleman is putting in a good early bid, because the Bald Baker pie, I mean, that sounds incredibly Scottish to me. Cheese, chips and doner kebab in a pie. All the carbs that you could ever need in one go. But perhaps I won't take him up on the offer of the barbers, and I'll stick with the hairdressers downstairs. Thank you.
Shopcat Adam.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Recent figures suggest that approximately 982,000 people are living with dementia in the UK, and that number is just about to get more higher. Many of these people reside in care homes, while others rely on care provided in their own homes. However, research from the Alzheimer's Society shows that only 29% of the care workers have received any specific training on caring for people with dementia. Would the Leader of the House back the Alzheimer's Society's campaign and schedule a time for a debate on how we can ensure more care workers are trained in treating people with dementia?
Well, it raises an excellent point, and dementia is obviously a really growing and awful affliction that is now spreading, and in terms of how many people are going to be getting dementia in coming years. And that's why this government is prioritising social care, making sure that social care workers have got the training and the pay that they need to do the job, and they're given the status to do that. But I'll certainly look into the issues that he raises.
Ashley Dalton.
Deputy Speaker, complaints from my constituents in West Lancashire about Northern Rail are prolific. Last month, Northern Rail told me that issues such as freezing carriages, trains cancelled at the last minute, non-existent Sunday services would be resolved by the new working days agreement. I learned yesterday that that negotiation has failed, leaving passengers back at square one. Could we have a debate on the floor of the House about the state of Northern Rail and the impact on passengers across West Lancashire, and the whole of the north of England?
Well, I know from my own constituents' experience that the people of the north have been really let down over many years of underinvestment and mismanagement by northern trains, and their current performance is just frankly unacceptable. That's why we've got a plan to take back the franchises back into public ownership, so that we can improve reliability and make sure that people can get the trains they need.
Final pithy question, Sir John Hayes.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Problem gambling first breaks people and then it costs lives. A far cry from the weekly pools coupon of my father's day. It is devastating people in Lincolnshire and elsewhere. So, given the announcement of the new statutory gambling levy of 30 million, Will she arrange for a debate to make sure we can make sure that we can guarantee that money is spread fairly, isn't eaten up merely by organisations sponsored by the gambling industry?
Well, he's right to raise this, and online gambling in particular has completely changed this whole industry and people's susceptibility to gambling problems and gambling addiction, and that's why this government is taking forward the recommendations previously to tackle the scourge and the problems of gambling, and I will ensure that the relevant minister does come to the House at some point and talk about these issues.
I thank the leader for a comprehensive session, which brings us